Most people
language.
think kasi na your love language is what you like to give or what you give is what you want to receive. But actually, it turns out that's not the case most of the time.
So actually, people always think when they hear the word physical touch, it means na sobrang overly touchy, as in kailangan yung
Yes.
tipong kissing lang siya, ganon. But
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that if your love language is receiving gifts, that you are materialistic. A lot of Filipinos also have low self-esteem because in your household, you don't practice giving the love of words of affirmation.
You always have to constantly reaffirm each other and talk about your love languages because sometimes it does change.
So the 5 love languages are... Welcome to episode 5 of He Said, She Said. So today we're going to talk about love languages. Actually, I think this is so important for any successful relationship. You really need to know yung love languages ng isa't isa.
Yes, actually, this topic is close to heart for both of us. You guys will know that this is the secret sauce of our relationship of 10 years now.
Yes, so maybe we could start off with sharing with everyone what are the 5 love languages and what they're actually about. So a lot of people are not sure if it's for giving and receiving love languages. Pero for sa ating dalawa,
Yes.
it's more of like a giving and receiving thing, no? Like,
Yes.
pag tinanong, what's your love
Most
language?
people think kasi na your love language is what you like to give or what you give is what you want to receive.
Yes.
But actually, it turns out that's not the case most of the time.
Yeah, hindi siya necessarily pareho. Like, what the type of love you like giving is not necessarily the type of love that you would like to receive.
Yes.
That's why it's also important to talk to your partner about it so that magkaintindihan kayo para you're on the same page. So the 5 love languages are...
So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch.
So actually, people always think when they hear the word physical touch, it means na sobrang overly touchy, as in kailangan yung
Yes.
tipong kissing lang siya, ganon. Pero actually, it's not then. Like physical touch, it's more of also like a pat on the back or like
A hug.
or holding hands, ganon. Quality time naman, it's really spending time with each other. Sometimes it's not necessarily yung length.
I think a lot of people get confused with this one. Kasi they think na just because you spent a lot of time, like
Yes.
meaning like, oh, we were seated
Next
together
to
for
each
like
other,
2
yeah,
hours,
yeah.
but you weren't talking naman or doing anything with purpose. That doesn't really count as quality time eh.
Yes, that's true. Like quality time, you need to be doing something that you both enjoy, or you're having a conversation na like it's a deep or
Yeah.
it's a meaningful conversation to have.
Convo
Or actually
or-
even shallow rin naman pwede,
Yeah.
but it's like the quality lang.
Or parang you're like cooking together, doing a hobby or
Yes,
something
yes,
like that.
correct. And then receiving gifts naman.
So, see, receiving gifts naman, I think a lot of people think na this may come off as toxic if you like receiving gifts. But then in reality, some people don't understand na gifts naman could come in all sorts of like shapes and sizes eh.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to be a grand like gift
Yeah.
naman, like parang, oh, it needs to be a watch, it needs to be a ganon.
Yeah.
It could be like a cookie. or-
Yeah, actually, you know what? When I talk about this with my friends, they're worried to answer receiving gifts because they feel like the guy would assume that they're materialistic. But
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that if your love language is receiving gifts, that you are materialistic. It's more of like the little things. Like, for example, I don't know, na-mention mo na there's this specific candy or chocolate that you've been craving for, and then the person parang gives it to you. Tapos parang, it's more of parang, I thought of you when I got this for you. Kaya nagiging yung love language mo is receiving gifts. It's not necessarily by the amount of the
Or even
gift.
like a written post-it.
Yes,
like
yes.
love letter,
So, like
parang
yun nga,
ganun.
it's more of like the thought that counts when it comes to yung gifts. It's not necessarily if it's little or a big gesture.
I think you can define acts of service since you're the master of acts of service.
Actually, that's so funny because I don't necessarily think I'm the master of acts of service. I think nagkataon lang because bilang babae, parang automatically you're raised to be someone who
Yeah.
serves others. And because panganay din ako of
Yeah.
3 girls, like I was always raised in such a way that I'm like the second parent to my sisters. So parang sanay ako na nagsuserve ako sa ibang tao. Kaya siguro like when we ended up dating each other, you felt like I was extremely good at that. Pero parang ako naman feeling ko not necessarily.
I think your
I think
family
it's the
would beg to differ.
I think it's the
Diba?
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So words naman of affirmation. I feel like I learned a lot about this one through you. Because I would think like saying na, oh, you're beautiful, that's like good enough na,
Yeah.
no? But then in reality, like, as time flows, parang you start to realize na you need to think of more deeper words of
Yeah.
affirmation. Like, tipong, I appreciate you for coming up with this, like our travel, anong tawag
Mm.
doon? Like that travel, uh,
Group chat, like the
group chat
itinerary.
itinerary
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I think in the Philippines, remember we talked about this, that one of the unappreciated love languages is words of affirmation,
Hmm.
because sa bahay pa lang, like, parents in the Philippines, at least most like ako, I think majority of
Hmm.
the parents, they don't really affirm and encourage their children. So you bring that onto the relationships that you also have,
Yeah.
na kaya hindi ka sanay na mag-affirm ng tao. Kasi I think it's a Filipino thing kasi, na pag nag-affirm ka, feeling mo lalaki agad yung ulo. Like, kunyari, if your child has a good score, or parang magaling siya, parang feeling ng mga ibang parents na hindi, pag kinompliment ko siya, baka lumaki ulo niya. That's why
True.
actually this is also rooted, pero this is for another topic na. This is also rooted as to why a lot of Filipinos also have low self-esteem, because in your household, you
Mm-mm.
don't practice giving the love of words of
Or I think it's like
affirmation.
rooted in our culture and also like
Mm.
diba people like saying like grabe tumataba ka or like
Yeah, exactly. Diba?
there's
Nauuna yung,
hmm
parang it's normalized to say something bad over encouraging one another and affirming each
mm
other. That's why actually leading up to the topic of recently, words of affirmation is something that I realize I want us to um, practice or also include in our
parang work on eh.
relationship. Yeah.
Kasi like me, my natural way kasi of like um giving and receiving is so different eh from like me. I like spending quality time,
Yeah.
and then I'm not afraid to say physical touch, diba? Kasi like
Yeah.
I grew up in a household, we are all brothers, so I think it's like how you're brought up rin
Yeah.
also. Pero like my dad kasi is very mag-gifts, acts of service,
Yeah.
ganun. So like it's very hard to tell rin also eh na what what type of like love languages do you really want to receive?
Yeah.
Kasi
Okay,
diba
so what
like
do you like give? So the ones that you like receiving are
quality time
and
and
physical
then
touch.
physical
And then
touch.
if it's what do you think you give?
For me, mostly gifts. I think
Okay.
gifts and ano, I would say gifts and maybe physical touch rin also.
Yeah.
So it's like halo eh.
Yes.
So like it's partly what I want to receive, but
Mm-mm.
also with like the gift giving. I don't really care so much on my end receiving that.
Yeah.
You naman.
Actually, we talked about this na before. So we have the same love languages when it comes to receiving. So ako, same din ako. I also enjoy quality time and physical touch, because malambing akong tao eh. So I
Yeah.
like physical touch kasi I like being able to hug you. Like, not necessarily with your... Oh, by the way, yung love language nga pala, it's not necessarily only towards your
Mm-mm.
romantic relationships, but it's also in terms of your
Like as a whole eh.
relationships with your family members, with your friends. Yeah, like parang it's generally speaking. So yun, so me, in terms of receiving, it's quality time and physical touch. And then what I like giving to others, I like giving gifts to
You
others.
literally give
Actually,
every single love language kasi
I like
that's the problem.
I
That's the
don't know which
problem.
one is my number one. Wait lang.
I
I
would
think it's
say
giving gifts and
giving gifts.
acts of... Actually, now that you brought it up kanina,
Yeah, acts
I
of
think acts of
service.
service. Because nga,
Mm.
I'm used to trying my best to help other people the way, in any way possible.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's acts of service. So weirdly, actually, bakit nga ba ganun? Yung receiving ko is baliktad from my sending. Kasi nga, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the same. Like, di ba?
Pero like, what do you feel ba like, because I think most men are afraid to admit that they actually do want physical touch. Because we don't want to come off as like parang maniac or, parang gano'n. Because that's the notion with physical touch is. Like,
Yes, correct.
you always want to be intimate, etc.
Yeah.
Ganun. So you as a girl, when you found out that that's part of one of my top love language just that I want to
Yeah.
receive ganun. How did it make you feel?
Well, it didn't make me feel uncomfortable because
Mm.
number one, hindi ka naman manyak. And number two, like, my understanding rin of physical touch is not necessarily yung manyak definition of it. So, I also have the same love language nga kasi because mahag nga rin akong tao. Like, I'm
Yeah.
also malambing to my family members and like to my friends. So, I didn't find it weird naman. But one thing that I also want to acknowledge is that love languages, I feel like it's seasonal. Like
Mm-mm.
sometimes it changes through time.
Yeah.
Like yun nga, like I told you recently, I noticed na parang I appreciate words of affirmation also more. Because I feel like, yun nga, in the Philippines, it's not really
Yeah.
parang there are a lot of, well, as a panganay, my gosh. There are a lot of things that I feel like I do and I feel unseen or
Yeah.
parang
I think that
unappreciated.
that's where we
But
differ.
people are like, no, but I appreciate you. But like, how will I know, diba? Kasi like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I can't read your mind.
Yes.
Like, I can, yes, actions speak louder than words. But sometimes, words will also help to affirm parang my thoughts in my mind din. Na parang,
Yeah.
like, do you acknowledge that I'm doing this for
Mm-mm.
you? Like, do you acknowledge na nagpupuyat akong gawin to para sa'yo? Or hindi mo na-appreciate yon.
Yeah.
So that's why words are also important in that sense. Kasi nga, I feel seen and I feel appreciated when, aside from you show that love towards me, but you
Mm-mm.
also say it
It's a
in
communication
words.
aspect eh.
Yes.
Kasi like most people think na, oh, I already gave her a gift na. She should already feel like she's loved or parang mga ganun. I think that's where we differentiated eh. Kasi like I had to really learn a lot when I found out that you started to want to have words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Me naman kasi personally, I don't really care so much about words of affirmation. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't really affect me so much. Like even if people are like, Chris, you're the best and like ganun. Like it doesn't affect me as much as quality time.
Yes.
So my adjustment had to be like, okay, I need to parang put your needs first compared to mine,
Mm-mm.
and then like study how I can communicate better how I feel. Kasi in my household talaga, we don't really talk so much about mga feelings, kanan.
Yeah.
Like we're just mahug and then bye. Parang
Yeah.
ganun.
No, that's true. That's why upbringing is also so important. Like when if this in terms of romantic relationships, you need to know the type of environment and upbringing that the other person grew up in. Because more often than not, you will, well, not more often than not, I think you will surely carry that on, like certain aspects of that upbringing into your future life and your future relationship with other people. So, kaya importante talaga na kailangan you talk to each other. That's why communication is really key. You need to get to know each other. Because if you don't know each other, then how are you gonna make the relationship work?
Yes.
'Diba? And especially yung love languages, like in a lot of relationships, a lot of people feel unseen, unloved, and unappreciated.
Mm-mm.
And it's because they don't talk about it. Like
Yeah.
there's this parang floating thing between the two of you, but you don't wanna talk about it. So, parang you're harboring resentment.
Mm-mm.
And then yung other person, parang tralalala, wala siya kamalay-malay. Like ako I would say that's something that women are guilty of. Parang we keep it inside, like
Parang, I'm okay,
tinatago
I'm okay
namin,
lang,
yeah.
ganun.
Until one day biglang, hindi mo ba naalala nung 2016, ginawa mo to, nung 2017,
Which is
ginawa mo
why
to,
I think
2018.
you should discuss and find out as early as possible what your love languages are.
Yes.
Because as a guy, like sometimes, diba, like you're dating the girl, ganon, and then bigla lang they're like, well, you never did this for me.
Yes.
But then you never really brought it up as an issue.
Yes.
Like imagine like 4 years down the road, you're saying like, how come you never gave me any gifts or something?
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, but when you first started dating, you're like, oh, I'm simple naman. I don't want gifts. I don't,
Yes.
ganon. So parang you're giving mixed signals.
Yeah,
Ganon.
yeah. Yun nga, kasi nga, syempre, at the end of the day, we can't read
Mm-mm.
each other's minds. So, we really need to talk about it and make sure that communication is prioritized in this relationship for it to work. And at the same time, while you're getting to know each other, as a woman and a man in the relationship, it's also so important to see the reality of the person and not just the potential. Because like, kaya rin may mga tao na unhappy in their relationships. Kasi at the first part of the relationship, they will say, the excuse is, hindi, okay lang, magbabago siya. Like, pag
Yeah.
tumagal kami, magbabago siya. When you're at that mid part of the relationship, your excuse now is, ang tagal na namin, parang hindi ko na pwedeng ibahin yung ano niya, yung behavior niya at this
Mhm.
point. Like, that's the reality, guys. Lalo na sa mga
Yes.
babae. My gosh, you cannot change a guy, the longer lalo na if you're together, like, if you think you have more power through time, you are wrong. Like, men will not change through time. Like, if you want to change something about,
You have to be open with us. Like,
yeah,
what do
like,
you
and
want us to
kailangan
change
sabihin mo
ba?
na at the start of the relationship para you're on the same page. Hindi pwedeng, like,
It has to evolve eh. Diba?
yes, exactly. And you have to be willing to have that conversation. Ako, for me, importante yun start pa lang. Kasi, again, I don't date for fun. So, if
Yeah.
you're dating for a long-term relationship, you need to make sure that mapag-usapan nyo yun at the start pa lang. Kasi,
Yeah,
you
it
could
goes
avoid
back
unnecessary
to what you were
pain.
saying like in our previous episodes na it takes work eh.
Yes.
Diba relationships is work.
Yes.
Which a lot of people are saying like, no, if you're in love, it shouldn't like be about work, etc. Ganon. But people need to understand that you always have to constantly reaffirm each other and talk about your love languages because sometimes it does change. Like before growing up, you'd think na physical touch is what you want, but then you realize as you become more emotionally mature, you actually want acts of service pala.
Yes, yes.
You know what I mean? Because it gets confusing kasi
Yeah.
sometimes like medyo nagbe-bridge yung
Yun nga, kasi nga it's
like
seasonal
other
eh.
ones
Like,
eh.
love languages really change
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, through time, through what you need at that phase in your
Yeah.
life. Kaya nga, it's important talaga na mapag-usapan nyo yun. And you can also talk about what your expectations are, di ba? In a relationship or in, for example, a marriage. Kasi nga, sometimes hindi talaga kayo pareho. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, the two of us, we're from different families, different upbringings, different schools, di ba? Different group of friends. So, we need to talk about it at the start. Kasi nga, when you're in the, if you're gonna get married to the wrong person, like, supposedly, di kayo maghihiwalay. I mean, at least for me, the concept of
Or
marriage
what
is
if
that
the
it's a promise.
person just really hates that person's love language? Like, they're not words of affirmation.
Ako, for me, if boyfriend mo pa lang siya, well, kasi nga bilang she said, ang sasabihin ko, for me, if magkaiba kayo ng love language, think twice and think really hard. Because if he cannot give the love language that you want, like for example, sanay siyang sobrang spoiled sa bahay, hindi siya nag-chores and all, and then weirdly,
Acts of service
acts of
is
service
like
ang gusto mo,
deads.
sis, hanggang mamatay ka, talagang iisipin mo hindi ka niya pagsisilbihan. Like, that's the reality. Like, if you're gonna stay with this person forever,
Yes.
that's why you have to think really hard. Or, if you want the relationship to work, you have to work on it and talk about it together.
So the
Because it
compromise
takes
should be
two.
on both ends. Diba?
Yes. If you magkaiba kayo ng love language, you have to talk about it because it takes two for that relationship to work. Because to
Yes.
begin with, kahit nga similar na love language, mahirap na. Imagine how much harder it is if you have different love languages.
That's why we
diba?
always talk about communication eh.
Yes.
Like I remember this is an example eh. Like the wife appreciates the husband cooking ganon. So would that be under acts of service or gift? Let's say they bake cookies for someone. That could technically be a gift or an act of service.
Yeah, kasi the love languages, it also, like quality time is
But
technically
you're not
acts of
gonna
service
know eh,
and if you
diba?
do- yes,
Unless
correct.
they say.
Yeah. Kaya nga, if you really, the concept of love has, is, and will always be selfless. You cannot say that you're in love with a person if you're always prioritizing what you want.
Yeah.
Diba? Like, for me, loving is putting another person's needs
Yeah.
above.
Kasi without compromise, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Yes.
So like, if you want your relationship to work, you have to put your partner's needs first before yours. Before we get bashed here. If you both do that, then you're both putting your partner's needs before your own.
Yes.
So technically, there wouldn't be any problem.
Yes. At
Diba?
saka imposible talaga for a relationship to work na walang nag-compromise in the entirety of the relationship. Like,
Wala, deads na
my
yan.
gosh, huwag ka na lang makipagrelasyon kung hindi ka ever willing mag-compromise.
Especially if you start keeping score eh. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted quality time, but he didn't give me quality time.
Yes,
So I'm not gonna
yes.
give him his gift.
Yeah.
Or I'm not gonna hug him.
Yes.
So, parang that's usually how it starts. And then it just keeps growing and growing until, wala na, they they break up or they
Yeah.
have a huge fight. Ganun.
Yes, that's true. So yung actually love languages, we were able to figure that out because the church that we go to, which is
Mm-mm.
CCF, they have a bookstore there, and then there's a book entitled The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So actually maraming versions yan like for romantic relationships, and then
Mm-mm.
if I'm not mistaken, meron ding parent-child,
Yes.
'di ba? So iba-iba.
What I like about it then also is for our non-Christian viewers, kanan,
Mm.
it still can apply to you eh. Kasi like,
Yes.
it applies to just relationships in general.
Yes.
And you'll learn so much from it. But there's like a quiz ata rin also ata in that one.
Actually, online, alam ko merong mga short quizzes dyan. Or
Mm.
if you don't wanna
Sound
if
like
you
it's
don't wanna
a...
sound like sobrang formal na
Oo.
napaka-quizzy naman, you could
Mm-mm.
just really observe ano yung mga bagay na when you do it for your significant other, parang
Yeah.
their eyes light up. Alam mo yon? Or like, what are the things that they say na, grabe na-appreciate ko talaga kasi ginawa nitong
Or
person
make it
to or
chill lang.
sinabi
Make it
mo
like a
to.
game or something like that. Diba like, when you're first dating naman, you're asking so many questions.
Yes.
Ganun.
Or parang
So,
this or that game. Na
Diba?
parang, do you prefer this or that?
or even the, extrovert, introvert
Yeah.
quiz thing.
Oo. Ayun, quiz talaga. My gosh, quiz talaga yun.
Medyo mahaba yun eh. But
Mahaba
the
yun.
love language one is medyo short.
Yeah.
But it will really come a long way. And I think people kasi should be more open to it eh. Kasi people think na, the infatuation phase, what do you call that? The
Yeah.
honeymoon phase, kanon. That doesn't last that long eh. So,
Yes.
if you don't like learn more about your partner, learn how they want to be loved, wala na, parang sayang all your effort.
Yes, that's why it's really important to use your love languages as a way to resolve fights rather than escalating those fights.
Yes.
Kasi nga, number one, you really need to get to know each other because without knowledge, you wouldn't know how to make the relationship work or you don't know how to understand the other person better. Kaya importante talaga na you get to know each other, and of course, you need to also understand where your partner is coming from. But again, you won't understand where your partner is coming from if hindi mo siya kilala.
Yeah.
Kaya importante talaga lalo na at the start of a relationship, you really need to get to know each other. You need to, obviously, you have to start with shallow questions, but at some point, in your relationship, you need to talk about very important things, diba? Especially things that matter to you. Like, okay, at the top of my mind, like for example, if you want to have kids or not. Those are the types of
Yeah.
relationship questions na you need to
Make
have
or
with your
break talaga
partner.
yan.
Yeah, make or break
Yeah.
kasi siya eh. Diba? So, that's why it's important talaga to get to know each other. And itong love languages is very important.
Especially the expectations that you have with your partner.
Yes.
Because if you have like no/low expectations, then don't have high expectations after that.
Yes.
Because your partner can't just like switch on and off eh.
Yes.
But it's for me, I'm not used to the words of affirmation thing. But you know, diba? Like I've been trying, like I've been
yes,
getting better.
I know.
So I've been reading this book called Atomic Habits. Parang you just have to, you start lang one sentence,
Yes.
yung mga ganun. Kasi I'm not a very poetic, like,
Yeah.
what do you call that? Smooth talker, whatever. Na I can just pull out 5 lines out of thin air.
Yeah.
Ganun.
So for you ba, like what do you feel like at this season in your life?
Mm-mm.
What parang love language do you want right now?
I would
Na,
say,
like kunyari coming from me. So
Oo.
if me nga kasi sinabi ko na parang I'm in the face na parang I appreciate words of affirmation now.
for me, I
Ikaw?
appreciate quality time the most. I think the pandemic really like changed how
Yeah.
I viewed it. Because before I used to think like, oh, physical touch, kasi like I'm a hug or like, I'm a very playful person eh. But I realized na we get very busy. Sometimes I don't get to see you for like ilan weeks, especially when you have like taping, ganun. So it's really like the time that we spend together is what I appreciate the most. Now that I'm older. Wow. Older.
Nakakatawa naman yung answer mo na quality time. So lagi na we're always together na.
Yeah.
So yun, I like knowing what we said about, you know, yung love languages of each other. So di ba nga words of affirmation, quality time, you realize that love is seen in the small moments. It's not necessarily yung we spent a lot of money to go in this expensive trip, but it's really more on the small moments that you spend with one another.
Yeah.
Or the small things na parang ibibigay ko na parang, oh, I thought of you today.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like people need to realize that true love, it really isn't easy, but it's worth fighting for, 'di ba?
Or like me, can I share lang? remember I had like senti moments before because of that movie, the Up movie.
Ay,
And then you're like, what's that? Parang naging uso yun the sound that.
yeah. Yung parang nakakasenti na sound.
Because I realized also na that's why quality time means so much to me is because, syempre like, you don't know, what's that line? Yung parang, you don't know what you've had until it's gone or something like that.
Yes.
Kasi like, even our coffee dates or
Mhm.
just random window shopping in the malls, kanan. Like, in the moment, you think like, oh, we're just doing this, kanan. But then in the future, parang, those are the times na you can't go back to anymore.
Yes, that's so true. Actually, I agree with you with that. And also at the same time, I want to also share with others, don't settle for less. Because I believe that each person deserves the type of love and happiness that they're praying for.
Mm-mm.
And some people kasi parang there's a quote na you accept the love you think you deserve. But actually it's used negatively.
Yeah.
In a sense na parang feeling mo you don't deserve true love or like the right type of love. But ako, I believe everybody deserves the right type of love and true love. Like everybody deserves true love. But it's just a matter of, yun nga, choosing wisely. That's why you need to
Mm-mm.
choose well. And you have to choose wisely because if this person lalo na will be in your life forever, imagine it's going to be a lifetime of misery if you marry the wrong person. So, why not make a wise decision now na ngayon pa lang
Yeah.
pumili ka na ng mabuti, 'di ba?
Kasi like, imagine you're gonna spend like how many years of your life that you're not gonna get back, and then just for the person to realize that you didn't feel love this whole entire time
Yes, exactly.
because you didn't open your mouth and say like, parang this is what I want. Parang
Yeah, and like I've met a lot of people
Mm.
who are like that. Like I
ganun.
mean, you know.
Like I've met people who like ended up like cheating ganun in their relationship for like the dumbest thing. Like it's like, oh, he never washes the dishes. Yung parang ganun.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then to us, it may sound like parang, oh, that's so OA naman ganun. But to someone who really wants acts of service,
Yes, yes.
that's such a huge thing for
Correct.
them. Eh.
Yeah, that's
Or like
true.
some people, they judge other people's relationships because they're like, how come they're so happy? All he does is give her gifts or something like that. Eh, what if that's what she really wants? Yung parang gift.
Yes.
So, like, people need to focus on what they really want and not feel parang pressured or parang pressured to be judged or something, or like feel scared that their partner will judge them. Because if their partner can accept them naman, then the relationship can take the next step. If not, then try again.
Yes,
Diba?
yes. So yun, like true love, like it's in movies, true love is seen as a fairy tale. But you know what, love talaga, is it a fairy tale like in real life? Like
Yeah.
just as life has ups and downs, your love story also has its ups and downs. It has lessons, learnings, wisdom, but it also has beautiful moments, 'di ba? Like yun nga, like sometimes naman masyado namang reality na ang hirap magmahal, parang wala na magmamahal, walang forever.
Yes.
Remember, like
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
people,
walang
'di ba?
forever.
Or sana all. Pero we should stop the sana all culture because you could also find this type of love and you
Yeah.
could also find great love in your life as long as you choose well, 'di ba?
Yes, because you can find great love in this world, but you're blessed if you ever find the right one. So like, I'm very curious kasi to hear from our listeners kanon. They should comment on our like parang TikTok kanon, like what their like love languages are, or like what their top love languages are.
Yes, I'm actually so curious. So, I
Yeah.
hope you guys can also share with us kung ano yung mga love languages nyo. Because ako, I wanna know what yung mga ibang tao.
Ah, yeah,
like-
me too.
At saka, by the way, yung mga love languages minsan, ano siya, combination.
Yes.
It's not necessarily just one or two, diba?
Yes, and then people just need to know that sometimes love languages change over time, or some people syempre, if this is the first time you've heard of love languages, you might make a few mistakes na your number one is actually your number three, or
Yes.
takes time.
Yes.
But hopefully this like episode helped you guys in your relationship, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes, thank you so much for watching episode 5 of He Said, She Said, where we talked about love languages. See you in the next episode.
Bye. That's a wrap for this episode of He Said, She Said.
We hope you had as much fun as we did debating.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends and partners.
Follow us for more hot takes on love, life, and everything in between.
See you in the next one. Bye.